wanted to come. Whenever we've been travelling to Scotland and wanted to go, the tide's always been against us, but this time we're lucky.
I've heard so much about it, and I always felt I'd like to come. You see, my friend at the side, she brought me. So I thought it'd be a nice experience. It's lovely, you know, it's just got a certain feeling about it, hasn't it?
You can always fill a coach at Northumbria and Lindisfarne.
In the first programme on Lindisfarne, the Cradle Island, we saw the private face of Holy Isle, a tiny, close-knit community with a profound sense of the past going about its very present business. But now the tide is open, as they say in the island. The tourists are streaming across the causeway now that the tide is out and the way is clear. And the little village is bracing itself for its daily flood of trippers. It's quite a thought, you know, when a little community of hardly more than 170 people is swamped by a tide of something like 500,000 visitors a year.
Tell you what we haven't got out, the vegetable salad.
No, I realise that.
A lot of the visitors that come here, they want to come here to see Holy Island. But then I think there are quite a few that come here just for the sake of it. You know, it's a day out, but when they come here, they're rather disappointed. With no facilities for them, jukeboxes and one-armed bandits and things like that.
Inside the castle, custodian Sue Robinson prepares the public rooms for the influx of visitors. No disco music here, just quiet echoes of the past. For the more robustly inclined, there's a tour on tap of the geological past of the island.
See where the boulder clay dips here, formed a little brae. This has been an ideal place for people to dump rubbish. And here we're looking at now the old midden, possibly the old monk's midden.
The guide is retired education officer Ernie Evans, now a resident incomer with a boundless enthusiasm for the byways of island history.
Now I took a sample of them last year and had them identified. They are cattle bones, carbon dated to medieval times.
One of the things that interests me is the way in which people who live in this area do still look to this island as some kind of spiritual centre.
Now that steps lead somewhere out. Those steps lead somewhere. Now then, can anybody tell me where those steps will lead to? Yes?
Dormitory.
They lead to the dormitory, that's right. Why do you think the monks had their dormitory very, very close to the church? Yes, Jeanine?
Because they had to work.
Yes, they had to come and worship. How often? Once a week? Just on Sundays? How often did they worship?
All night and all day, most of the time.
That's right. They had services right through the day and right through the night. So
People come here for all kinds of reasons, with all kinds of motives, the casual, the curious, and the committed. To the casual, it's simply a lovely place to wander. I defy anyone not to enjoy a good ruin, especially one with the resonant sonorities of Holy Isle. And to the curious, it speaks so much of history. We know almost everything about it and almost nothing about it. We know when it was built by the Normans. We think we know why it was built. We know quite a lot about the lives and occupations of the monks who lived here, but we know nothing of their preoccupations, because it's up to us, to our imaginations, to people a place from our curious and questing minds. Droves of visitors head for the castle, the dainty little fort as it was called, built in the 16th century by Henry VIII against the Scots.
Two, is that?
Two, yes, please.
That's £4, please.
It's now administered by the National Trust through Sue and David Robinson, who cope with some 40,000 tourists a year.
This is a children's guidebook, the official guide that has the history and the contents of the castle, and the end one is a colour souvenir brochure.
We worked for the National Trust for 2 years before we came up here into the castle. I was caretaker here, and
Thank you very much.
it was always what I wanted to do. I wanted to be administrator of the castle. When the visitors have gone, we then enjoy the castle. It's superb. We really enjoy living here. We don't live in the castle as such. We have our own flat upstairs.
The castle was restored at the turn of the century by Sir Edwin Lutyens as an Edwardian country house and is now embalmed as a Lutyens masterpiece. The priory and church were robbed of their stonework to build this fairy tale castle on Beblow Crag, and many a filmmaker has used it since.
It was not so much a castle as a fortlet, a bulwark from which to command the sea approaches to the harbour. It was more, you might say, a matter of bluster than ballistics. Its many guns, its culverins and demi-culverins, its sakers and its falcons were never fired in anger. It was never put to the test of siege. It was basically just a garrison fort, and it was its men and not its menace that made the news. Men like Robert Rugg, for instance, who was the governor here during the Civil War. He seems to have been a memorable character. He was genial, hospitable, and immensely convivial. So convivial, indeed, that he developed an amazingly large nose that would have put Schnozzle Durante to shame. I don't suppose there was very much else to do here in those days except drink. Anyway, contemporary chroniclers were much more impressed by the awesome size and fiery hue of Captain Rugg's tremendous bottle nose than by the strength of this dainty little fort that he commanded.
For many of the visitors, Lindisfarne means mead, trying to do a Robert Rugg, emulating his conviviality, if not his bottle nose. The mead factory, which offers history by the flaskful, is perhaps the only island enterprise that exploits a name commercially, overtly at least.
I was very surprised to find the castle was inhabited, which makes it live, in my opinion. And I think the whole place is very intriguing.
Uncommercial, quiet and a bit out of the way. Not quite so money grabbing as other places.
The main thing that struck me was the number of tourists who were here, because it's actually very busy, but what was with tourists as opposed to locals. Sort of extremes of quiet and all of a sudden being invaded. I don't think I would fancy that very much if I lived here.
It's not the same as it used to be. There's a lot of changes that I regret. Summertime, when you get packed up with tourists, but it's good for other people, but I don't like it. I would rather have it quiet. But when you, this middle of the summertime, when you come down the street, I come down to the car and you can't get down. It's not the same as in the winter.
There's certainly many more people now, and I think that must cause a problem for the people on the island. It's something that I think I feel very aware of. I remember walking down by the harbour down there once, and somebody said, another one of those bloody monks here again, and it wasn't, it was an islander, and it made you, if it had been a visitor, a tourist, then you wouldn't have felt too bad, but when it was one of the islanders, it hurt a little bit.
I'm not the one to decry the tourists. To me, the olden days was easygoing. He knew every visitor I used to come onto the island nearly. You get to know them in a fortnight. If they had a fortnight's holiday, you got to know them. You knew what time they were going when they were coming back. Now they'll go 20 times a day if they want to with the cars.
But for many, it's the religious associations that matter most. The early monastery of St. Aidan and St. Cuthbert that the Vikings once raided in 793, and the Church of St. Mary that serves the living of Lindisfarne today under its vicar, the Reverend Dennis Bill.
He of the striped jersey
the bricks they're in different colours.
The stones are in different colours, yes. They've done that, I think, to make a pattern. Usually when people built arches like that, they carved. You'll see it in the Priory, the ruins next door. If you'd come here hundreds of years ago, what do you think you'd have found here instead of this stone church? Good. Little girl there.
So a wooden church.
A wooden church. It was oak, split down the middle, oak trunks, sunk in the ground, an earth floor.
St Mary's is a living church in the sense that it's used every day. We worship in it in the morning, we worship in it at night.
What's a monk do?
He helps people.
That's not his first job. That's not the first thing he feels he wants to be a monk for.
And of course, while you're working with the children, a lot of adults will sit at the back and listen.
His first job is to pray, yes. Let's get a picture of Aidan before we do any more. What's a monk look like usually?
Aidan did most of the things for which Cuthbert is famous, and people tend not to know. He used St Cuthbert's Island, he travelled enormously, he preached. But he was the pioneer who broke the ground, and without Aidan, there wouldn't have been a Cuthbert.
A magnificent carpet in the sanctuary of St Mary's triumphantly celebrates the Cuthbert connection. It's an exact scaled-up copy of a decorated page from the Lindisfarne Gospels, embroidered by island seamstresses. The Lindisfarne Gospels were made to mark a great occasion in the year 698, when Cuthbert's body was elevated from its grave for veneration and found to be incorrupt. It's one of the finest manuscripts in Europe, and it was made with immense love and care in the tiny scriptorium of the monastery on Lindisfarne, a glorious masterpiece from the golden age of Northumbria. Cuthbert was famed for his love of nature, and today much of Lindisfarne is a national nature reserve. Some 8,000 acres of some of the finest duneland and salt marsh and mudflats in all Britain, an unspoilt paradise for birdwatchers and botanists. The warden of the reserve is David O'Connor.
I don't think you've got to be an expert, really, to appreciate the flora of the island. You don't have to know the name, but it does help from time to time.
But you do have to know where to look.
Oh, yes.
Because
yes.
it's not exotic. It doesn't appear to be abundant.
Well, it's tucked away in all sorts of nooks and crannies. We've got a nice contrast here between the northern marsh orchid and the silverweed. It's just a lovely breadth and wealth of colour.
How do you protect an orchid when the whole place is so open that anybody can come along and pick them?
Well, the majority of times, I think they almost protect themselves because they're so nice growing where they are that people do tend to leave them alone.
David O'Connor is a sort of dune policeman, and he's got a nickname that goes with the role. On the island, he's known as the Sheriff.
I don't see it as a heavy-handed role. It's got to be a give and take in order to try and allow everyone to enjoy the island as it should be enjoyed. We need to conserve, but not to embalm. In the winter months, we manage the area for the birds, and during the spring and the summer, it's people management and the management of the botany. As warden, I shouldn't really admit to it, but I do have favourite places. And this is one of them, Sandham Bay. We don't have the place locked barred and bolted. It's an area of total open access. People can come and wander around at will. Occasionally we may close a small area down if there are some birds nesting there, but that's only for the benefit of the birds. We like people to enjoy the place much as you and I are enjoying it today. It's a bit of a secret place. For all Lindisfarne is such a public island, it's something to be discovered.
Managing a nature reserve is a matter of keeping the right balance for the complex ecology of the place, nature's own balance between the competing needs of all the creatures who inhabit it, making it the sanctuary it was in Cuthbert's day. With the advent of man, the balance has changed. Too much man can pollute a place, however unintentionally, and too much tourist man can tip the balance altogether. Time was when the fishermen of Lindisfarne would regard the visitors as quaint, exotic birds of passage. Now it's the fishermen themselves who provide the spectacle, a quaint, exotic backdrop for a leisured outing, as much a part of the Lindisfarne scenery as Lindisfarne Castle itself.
The castle was very interesting. I was expecting a fort, and it was more of a home. It was very, very cosy, actually. Anybody could live there, really. I thought it would be more remote than it is. Actually, there's quite a big village here, more houses than I expected.
I just thought it'd just be a little island. I never imagined it was as big as this. And just small and quiet, but I'd prefer more noise to it.
To be quite frank with you, I'm a little bit disappointed. It's sort of a drabbish, not as historical as what I thought. A lot more could be done to the island, especially the village. The village is not exceptionally pretty, and there we are.
A lot more could be done to the island? Well, that's one point of view. But it isn't shared by everyone, especially the man who owns all the land and rejoices in the feudal title of Lord of the Manor, Colonel Humphrey Crossman.
I think that people come to Holy Island because it is a holy island, apart from being a beautiful place as well. They come and enjoy what we have here, the church and the priory. They'll visit the castle, which is very well done by the National Trust. And I don't think they want anything else.
People's holidays have changed completely. In the old days, people had to get the trains and buses, and they tend to stay with a family for a week. This day and age, nearly everybody has motor cars. It's easy to fly to Spain for a holiday. So naturally, anywhere in England now tends to rely more on the day trippers than a week stop. I don't think this is particular to Holy Island. I would say it's general throughout the country.
But don't worry about it, just take your time and get your balance. And then slowly, just lean back slightly and let the water run off the sail and start to haul it up.
Chuck Hannant is a recent incomer to the island, a restaurateur with big ideas for the island's future.
If you come and look here, you can see the bows.
He dreams of a water sports centre and a marina, and he's busy converting an old house in the village with just that in mind.
Your left hand on and just sheet back and away you sail.
Well, it really started as a hobby about 4 years ago with water skiing, and a few of my customers in the hotel asked me if I would be kind enough to take them out. And last year, there was a few people came up with windsurfers, and I thought, well, what a smashing place for windsurfing, because you've got land on either side of you. I thought it would be a good idea to start a windsurfing school.
People have, from time to time, suggested we should have amusement arcades, caravan parks, and I, as Lord of the Manor, resist those very strongly indeed, because I don't think that's the sort of thing we want on Holy Island.
There have been Crossmans as lords of the manor on Lindisfarne for a long time. They used to run the place as their own. But though the feudal powers have gone, and the old manor house is now a hotel and Colonel Crossman now lives on the mainland, the lord of the manor is still an important power to be reckoned with.
Nowadays, one's much more of a figurehead, but one tries to look after the island, to preserve it as much as one can in the context of modern-day life.
In 10 years' time, I would like to see all the businesses on the island, including myself, doing very well. But at the same time, I wouldn't like to see the island commercialised in any way. I'd hate it to turn out like some of the other coastal resorts with bingo halls and amusement arcades. Hopefully, the island will never change, and it will just carry on more or less the way it is, but with a few more visitors.
In addition to the other attractions of the island, the seaside,
the fact that it is a small, interesting village. In addition to all of that, many people say the island has got something. Others will go further and say it has the presence of God or something has been left behind by the saints. But however they phrase it, it's clear that the island is a special place. Pilgrimages are increasing every year.
Rejoicing in the presence of Our Lady of St. Aidan, our patron.
Our church in Carlisle is St. Aidan's, so that was really the idea behind it. So let's go to Lindisfarne and make a pilgrimage of worshiping at the place that St. Aidan started out from, to bring the faith south of the border, so to speak.
Jesus, bread of life. The thing about the Christian faith, it's not just here and now, is it? It's all the time. And it's everywhere, of all times. And I think that comes through. The Spirit of God is not just a thing of the past with Aidan and Cuthbert in the olden days, in the wattle and daub, but it's now.
It was so moving. You really felt the presence of the saints, if I could say that. The people, I felt close, a oneness and togetherness that sometimes you don't always get at your normal worship. And I think the way the weather changed too and came out, it was sort of inspirational and thoroughly enjoyable. I think I'll go back a better person for it, yes.
The Waken tide is on the rise now, and soon the island will be islanded again. For the day's trippers, for better or for worse, their outing is nearly over.
The folks here are so friendly. Obviously, the Norsemen didn't kill off all the nice people when they came here. I think Shank's pony out to the castle, it's one of those places that get further away the nearer you get to it. But we survived. Oh, it's been a wonderful visit.
I just hope that some of them can just catch some glimpse of the magic of the place, because there is.
When the people are in, it's just one big hubbub. They crowd in and they crowd it all around, and it's just noise, noise, noise. And then all of a sudden, it's just like closing the door.
So the tide has closed, the tourists have scurried back to the mainland, and once again Lindisfarne retires into its own contented insularity, its own enchanted isolation, like some offshore brigadoon marooned in its own magic. The public face goes private again.
When I get back in here, I'm usually back in here because the tide has come up and people have gone. When we're on our own, I often say this to school children, and I often say it with laughing at the same time, because it's true. When we're on our own and everybody's gone, we can go to sleep if we want to, and nobody can check up on us, you see. Somehow the atmosphere is quite different. The island has the most tremendous pull on its own people. If they can't stay here, they will come back here.
There's plenty of islanders just like me, just love this holy island. It's me home anyway, and people born here. Same as the craft of people, if you're a craft, you're a craft. If you're country, you're country.
Lindisfarne is more than capable of taking care of itself. The tide comes in twice a day, and it gives it that breathing space that it needs when it's cut off from the tourism, the rat race. It's survived up to now, and I'm sure it will go on surviving long after you and I are dead and gone.
is something quite extraordinary about this island. It's not just because it's an island, but it's because it's an island that has been sanctified by holy people.